It's that time of year where you spend a lot of time with family watching some great football. Well, unless you're Aaron Rodgers. But this is the Fourth Down Countdown podcast. And as always, you got Coach Corey and Coach Ryan to kick it off with the first down opening drive.
Me home.
Welcome one and welcome all. As always, this is Coach Corey.
And Coach Ryan.
And this is the week of January 23rd, 2017. And this is your Fourth Down Countdown podcast. How you doing, Ryan?
Doing good, Corey. Happy to be here and ready for this podcast today.
All right, awesome. And hopefully you guys watched some great football over the weekend as the New England Patriots pounced on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And as I predicted, Atlanta was the kryptonite to Super Rodgers as they are now going to their second Super Bowl of all time. How do you feel about that one?
I saw it coming. I've said all year that it's been Atlanta's year, and they came right out of the gate with that first drive, and I think they really it was easy to see. I think their first drive pretty much put into perspective how the rest of the game was going to go, and I couldn't be happier. I'm very pleased with the Falcons, and I'm sure their fan base is really, really looking forward to the Super Bowl and hopefully bringing a title back to Atlanta.
All right. Yeah, I saw a couple, many memes and many pictures online about the upcoming Super Bowl, Atlanta and New England. One being a pie chart that showed a tiny sliver, or the pie chart was people rooting for Atlanta or to win the Super Bowl. A tiny sliver was Atlanta Falcon fans, and the rest was people who hate the Patriots, such like yourself.
Right.
Saying before this, you didn't even give a shit about watching the AFC
That
title
would be
game.
Correct.
But yeah, I was with one of our friends, Mr. Trevor, over watching at a Chili's before we went to a live event. We were watching, and it was pretty fun. There was one, our waitress was wearing a bandana or so, somewhat with Green Bay on it. So apparently all of her other coworkers hated Green Bay as they were looking for Atlanta Falcon fan, and I was wearing my hat, so they called upon me to rouse with her as well. So it was pretty fun to watch them. They shut them out in the first half. I think that was the game was over before the first half already. They were pretty much, I think after Ripkowski fumbled and they brought it all the way back for a touchdown, that was probably the death knell of that game for them. They were
Right.
pretty broken on that one. But also congratulations to New England Patriots to cheating their way to yet another Super Bowl title game. But we're going to move on. We're not going to talk all the way. All right, we're not going to talk much about the Super Bowl and everything predicting wise. This week we're going to wait until next week for that. We are got our big Super Bowl special next week. We got some good stuff for you. But we're going to move on to our only feature this week. We don't have any predictions for you. Just, this is going to be a light week for us, for you guys as well. We got an Anthem of the Week, and this one goes out to Miss Erin Andrews, who recently revealed that she is fighting, or has fought, I don't think she's fully through it yet, but I believe it's ovarian or ovary cancer. So this one is Stronger by Britney Spears. You want to give them a couple notes there, Ryan?
I have no clue what that song even goes like. So
It's like Stronger Than Yesterday. Okay, I'm done with that. But yeah, we're gonna, she was fighting this. Nobody knew about it, and she didn't miss a game for reporting. So damn strong woman right there.
I would have never known. I mean, she's always so enthusiastic on the sidelines and happy to be there, and did a great job at hiding it the entire season, and not wanting to, make anybody feel bad for her or anything. She came out at the end of the season with her what she's been struggling. So, like Corey said, a damn strong woman that us football fans will be praying for, keeping in our prayers that she can finish that fight.
Of course. All right, with that, that is our opening drive, folks, and we're going to move on to the second down.
With that, we are moving on to the second down. That's your news, notes, and predictions. Let's send it back to the coaches.
It's the second down that believe is the news, notes, and not this week. We got no predictions for you. We'll just talk a little bit more about the conference titles game. But we'll start off with some news, and we forgot one that kind of came out last week. We had so many of those hirings and stuff that this one kind of slipped through, as it shouldn't. Mr. Devin Hester, probably the greatest return man of all time, has decided to retire. Of course, he started the year with the Falcons, moved around a little bit, and ended his season with the Seahawks. But what do you think his Hall of Fame credentials look like there, Ryan?
I don't know if there's a Hall of Fame place for specialists like special teamers, because he was never much of a wide receiver. So if there is, like you said, I don't think there was anyone better than Devin Hester. But I'm not sure a Hall of Fame spot is there just exclusively for a special teamer. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with you, but if there was a guy that was to break in and be that first guy, it probably should be him.
It should be Devin Hester, correct. And next up on our list, we have the Colts announced that they fired their general manager, Ryan Grigson. No one really cares about the Colts organization except maybe people here in Indiana, but a lot of people are clamoring that, maybe Pagano should have been the one to go, and I think probably if Pagano doesn't have luck this upcoming season, he'll probably be on his way out as well.
Yeah, I think he's on a very, very short leash this year. They go 1-2 the first 3 games. I could see them pulling the plug that quickly. Also, I read some really weird thing that Jim Irsay had hired a therapist or something to try to settle the bad blood between Grigson and Pagano. I've never heard of a GM and a coach hating each other so much that they need a darn psychiatrist to come in.
Oh.
But yeah, we'll see who gets that job. And as of right now, the leading candidate is not Peyton Manning, so I don't expect him to get that job right now. He might get. I've heard he's been probably in the next 2 years he will get a front office job. So hopefully that comes sooner than later, because God knows he needs to make more Papa John commercials. But moving to somewhat shocking news, at least in my mind, I don't know about Coach Ryan. They asked Ben Roethlisberger about next season, and it seems like he is actually mulling retirement during the off season. What do you think of this?
It was a big surprise to me as well. I was watching SportsCenter or something the other day, and I thought it was a joke. I mean, he's still got plenty of years left, and I think maybe that loss to Tom Brady once again is just putting doubts in his mind. Can we get to that spot again? But certainly a big surprise, I think, for the entire league. With Ben mulling retirement.
Yeah, the only reason I can think is all these. He keeps getting hurt a lot. He misses a couple weeks here, a couple weeks there. I know way back he had that motorcycle accident that took him out for a while. I don't know if these are starting to count up on him. And he is a big guy. That's why they call him Big Ben. So, they say the big guys fall harder. So that might be his body's telling him, if you want to live a comfortable life, it's time to exit stage left. So we'll see during the off season.
Okay, and about the only time the Cleveland Browns will make any kind of news on our podcast that's relevant, they announced that Jamie Collins got a 4-year, $50 million extension. So not necessarily Von Miller money, but certainly a good deal when you're playing for Cleveland. That's not a bad contract at all. And I guess the joke's on Bill Belichick. The Cleveland Browns could afford him to give him a good contract, and I hope he has a great career in Cleveland, and I hope he makes Bill Belichick regret letting him go over that over that stupid statement,
I want Von Miller
I
money.
want Von Miller money, so he, just lets him go. But nonetheless, I think that's a great deal for Jamie Collins and the Browns organization.
Yeah, and I've actually seen reports that Dante Hightower in New England is saying, well, I want Jamie Collins money in New England, so we'll see how that happens.
Okay, and the next one we have the LA Chargers hired Gus Bradley as their defensive coordinator. Many of you probably know that Gus Bradley was the head coach in Jacksonville for, I believe, 3 or 4 years. Just never could really get them over the hump, but a defensive-minded guy, with the Chargers heading to, a new city, a new
look for everything.
A new look for everything. I guess why not? Start with somebody new. So.
All right. Well, we're gonna move to a little game we've got here, similar to hot seat, not seat, and other ones like that. With some news that the New England Patriots are holding out for a first-round draft pick for draft or trade compensation for Mr. Jimmy Garoppolo. I've got a question for you, Coach Ryan. We're going to play What They Worth. What They Worth. And I'm going to give you a couple names and that are somewhat been talked about for this offseason as trade bait. So I'm going to ask you what you think they are worth draft pick-wise. You ready?
Okay.
Well, we're going to start with Jimmy Garoppolo. What do you feel is a equal compensation for Mr. Garoppolo?
I think probably a second-round pick, I think, is deserving. He's had maybe a few games where he's been able to showcase what he's worth, but other than that, we really haven't seen a lot of him, so I don't think a first-round pick would warrant his status, but I think maybe a second, maybe even a third-round pick for somebody that's really hasn't proven themselves. I think that's probably more fitting.
All right, let's move to Washington, and if the Redskins decide against franchise tagging Kirk Cousins yet again, there are rumors that San Francisco and Cleveland might be wanting the services of Mr. Cousins, but what do you think they should trade for him?
Well, if the Washington Redskins fan base is listening, you need to franchise that man and get him a new deal because he's about the best thing you'll ever have closest to your next franchise quarterback. But nonetheless, if they do decide to let him go, I can see probably a second and a third round pick for him. I mean, he's done well for Washington, and I'd like to see him stay there, but I don't think many teams are going to give up a first round pick maybe for somebody they're not sure whether he'll fit in their system or not. So probably a second and third round pick for Captain Kirk.
All right. We're going to move to Dallas and the backup bitch, Tony Romo.
Probably a third round pick for Romo. I mean, he has gotten older. He does still have some talent left, but it's kind of like...
Whoa. He had talent in the first place?
Yes. Many people... are probably laughing, but I think, in that NFC game against the Packers, it wouldn't have hurt to put him in and at least try. I mean, Dak certainly wasn't getting the job done, so,
yeah.
But probably a third-round pick for Romo. It's kind of like a low risk, low reward, or, I think I said that right, low risk, low reward. Somebody that's maybe got a couple years left, if that, and
you nailed that one on the head. Low
really,
reward.
really doesn't have that much to offer to many teams. So maybe a third or fourth round pick.
Well, I hear he's really good at getting the starting quarterback their Gatorade. So there you go. But also, we reported last week that the Colts were looking into John Gruden as a head coach. But now reports this week say that they also put some feelers out there to see if the Saints were willing to trade Sean Payton. Chuck Pagano, if you make it through this offseason, God is on your side, buddy. It looks like they're trying so hard to find something else, but we'll see. What would you trade for a Sean Payton?
I would probably just do a coach for coach because these draft pick conditional draft picks for coaches are pretty asinine. So I would just trade a coach for a coach and call it done.
Well, I think New England would lose on that one if they got Chuck Pagano back from that one. They would need probably a water boy and a couple of grounds creep for that one. But that was what they worth. So we will see how those all play out, if any of them get traded, and who stays where and what. We'll of course keep you updated with all the free agent signings, trades, and draft rumors and all that. But we don't have any predictions this week, as it's the freaking Pro Bowl. Who cares? It'll be 138 to 109, probably is the final. But we're just going to kind of talk about a little bit about the conference title games. Ryan, who would you say was probably the shining star in the Green Bay Atlanta game?
Probably Matt Ryan. And I will say, if Matt Ryan doesn't win the MVP, it is rigged. Because I will honestly say Matt Ryan he's not one of those elite quarterbacks, but I think over time he's become more consistent, and I believe he needs to start being mentioned, of course not with Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, but certainly the guys after them, because his performance on Sunday, he was lighting up the Packers, and just every throw was right where his guys needed them to be to make a play. So Matt Ryan just played lights out, and I'm glad. I think they just gave him a extension this past off season.
No, actually, they are looking to do one this
off
season.
Okay. Well, they definitely need to pay the man, because he's certainly playing like a franchise quarterback right now.
All right.
Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that. Matt Ryan is playing at the top of any game. It does help that he has 13 targets to throw to. I mean, you leave one of them open, and it seems like Matt Ryan's finding that one guy that is open every time. Aaron Rodgers just didn't look like himself. Atlanta was doing everything right, and Green Bay was doing everything wrong. With Pittsburgh and New England, it just looked like, with Le'Veon Bell getting hurt early, that it just wasn't going to happen for Pittsburgh. Antonio Brown, a lot of them questioning his ability to, put his head in the game, keep it in the game. We put him on our the most outrageous characters list for a reason, and sometimes, especially in these kind of situations, you need to put your head in the game and not be Mr. Facebook Live.
Yeah, and I saw an article on some website that after the Steelers scored after the Steelers scored a touchdown, he hung his head. So I mean, do you really want to be there, or are you just imagining yourself at Disney World or something? But it's certainly a player that I really wouldn't think that those would be questions that would be coming up, because he's very, very talented and very team oriented, but certainly some questions that the Steelers organization are going to have to ask themselves in the off season.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, like we said, it's going to be a little bit of a shorter show, but with that is our second down. We're very, very excited to get to our new our first ever presentation of this third down, but we'll let Mr. Announcer Man tell you what it's called and what we're doing.
It's time for the third down, and this week we're gonna mix things up a little bit and introduce our new segment known as the Butterfly Effect. Now I'm gonna let Coach Corey explain to you guys what's going on.
All right, it is time for the third down, folks, and as you heard, our inaugural piece here is called the Butterfly Effect. I'll give you a little bit of a breakdown. So we came up with this idea that what would happen in the league. A lot of things have happened that have shaped how the football league looks, and we just kind of asked ourselves, what about the other side of the coin? What if someone didn't get hurt, or someone didn't leave a team, or what if someone left a team when they had the chance? How would the league look? But we kind of jumped into our own personal time machines. This is just our opinion on what we think how things would transpire if a certain condition was met. But we each have one, and we're going to give you a couple points and notes and just kind of tell you what we think would have happened in our fantasy land if this particular item in a different universe happened. So I'm going to let Coach Ryan start. We've done all the research that we can, and I'm going to give Ryan his first one. So, Coach Ryan, what would have happened if Derek Carr had not broken his leg in Week 16 of this year?
That is a great question, because I think many fans are probably asking themselves the same thing, what would have happened. So I'm going to give you guys a breakdown, and again, this is just our strictly our opinions, not necessarily a by the book answer of what would have happened, but just our best kind of have some fun with it predictions. So
yeah, we haven't visited a multiverse and got the answers.
That's right. So the first thing on my list, as many of you know, Derek Carr broke his leg in the Week 16 game against the Colts when he on that tackle by Trent Cole, and I believe in for my first step here, had they beat Denver in Week 17, I think Oakland would have ended up being the second seed, of course behind New England at number 1. And Oakland would have finished the year at 13-3 rather than 12-4, and Kansas City finished the season at 12-4 as well. But with Oakland having the better record, they would have been the second seed, only behind New England. My second step here, that would have, of course, Oakland being the second seed, they would have bypassed the wild card round and wouldn't have had to play until the divisional round. So in the divisional round, the number 2 Oakland Raiders would face off against the number 3 seeded Pittsburgh Steelers in the divisional round. And had that matchup taken place, I had the Raiders going to the conference championship and beating the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 3 on my list. That would take us to the conference championship, which would have been the Raiders versus the godforsaken New England Patriots. I have had the Raiders played New England. I think New England would have won, but I think Oakland would have put up a great showing and really showed that they were one of the better teams in the AFC. Fourth on my list, kind of like I just said, the Raiders would have got a little bit more of respect as a franchise if they could have made it to the likes of the conference championship rather than losing in the wild card round. Granted, they did have their third string quarterback in, as Carr had broken his leg, and then Matt McGloin was battling some injury issues. But again, I think Oakland would have got much more respect as a franchise if they would have went further into the playoffs rather than kind of a one and done kind of deal. And last of all, this is kind of just a fun one, but had Derek Carr not broken his leg, Oakland would not be moving to Las Vegas. And that's just a little fun one. I think maybe with a little more success, who knows? I think moving to Las Vegas is a big mistake for the Raiders. I think they have a great fan base in Oakland and great fans. But nonetheless, that's kind of just a fun one to end it off. Personally, I think Oakland will still be one of the better teams in the AFC. And hopefully Derek Carr stays healthy, and next season or in the near future we'll be able to see how it would have planned out if Carr stays healthy and sees what he can do for that franchise.
All right, I like it a lot.
And again, like Corey had mentioned, this is kind of just a more recent thing that have happened, but on our butterfly effects we're going to have a mix of current, past, scenarios that, and how they would have shaken up the league. So my question for Coach Corey would be, what would have happened had Brett Favre not left the Packers organization?
All right. Well, I like the question a lot. I remember following this story, but I'll give you a little backstory. Favre had a very ugly breakup with the Packers franchise after he was mulling retirement. Eventually, he gives his unconditional release and leaves for the Jets. And of course, we all know that the Packers move on to Mr. One Aaron Rodgers, and it's kind of worked out for him. But I'm going to look at the flip side of the coin and say that, Brett Favre never wanted to retire, and he just sticks with the Packers for quite a while. So let's see how things would play out. So number one, Brett, says he never even thinking about retiring. He's still committed to Green Bay. So Rodgers will ride the bench over the 08-09 season. So Green Bay offense flourishes always, as Brett Favre does. Plays as Brett Favre does. That year, I have them finishing at 11-5 and capturing the North title, along with the second seed in the playoffs. Moving on, Green Bay would get past Arizona and shut down at the time was always seen in the playoffs, the Philadelphia Eagles, and they would move on to Super Bowl, 43? But they would fall to the mighty Pittsburgh Steelers, 34-30. Originally, that game was the Pittsburgh and Arizona Cardinals, that great Kurt Warner game. But knowing now that gets a little bit more interesting, Coach. In the off season,
I'm on the edge of my seat.
Oh. So knowing that he will never start in Green Bay, the Packers decide that they're going to trade Aaron Rodgers to a team very desperate for a quarterback. At this time, there was a team that was very desperate for a quarterback. It was a team very embattled with a lot of bad media at the time. They're coming off their first season without their former franchise quarterback, Michael Vick. So yes, Atlanta trades its number 3 pick for Aaron Rodgers. They know this guy can do some damn good, so they decide to roll the dice. A top 3 pick for a top 5 quarterback. So number 3 is for the Rodgers. Thus, Matt Ryan falls to number 5, becoming a franchise quarterback for the Kansas City Chiefs. So we've got that coming on. So you're going to ask, what did Green Bay do with that 3rd round pick? I would look up and down the list, see who was a very viable, there was a lot of flunky, a lot of draft picks that didn't really pan out much, but I think they would have come off pretty good, and they select Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie to strengthen their secondary. I think that would have been a great pick for them. And of course, I know what I know now about these players, but you never know. It's always a gamble in the draft, but that's how I see them doing. So let's move on to the next season in 09 and 10. Farve, and of course in the 2nd round they drafted a young man by the name of Jordy Nelson. So I've got that still happening. So Jordy Nelson and Brett Favre set the world on fire and return to the playoffs and the Super Bowl yet again to face Peyton Manning and the Colts in the battle of future Hall of Famers. Of course, they're originally being the Colts and the Saints, but I've got Favre and Jordy Nelson pretty much lighting the place on fire. But DRC, playing like a first-round pick, not Tracy Porter, picks off Peyton and leads the way to a 27-21 victory. So Green Bay gets another ring. So let's move on to the next season. In 2010-11, Green Bay fails to get far in the playoffs as they fall to the Legion of Boom that has been formed now, who defeat Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl after the season. Favre announces the next season will be his last. Of course, that Super Bowl is when Green Bay actually did win the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers against Pittsburgh. But with this aging Favre, we've got a different outcome for those. And our last point of I like this set off for this last season of Favre. After a grueling last season, Green Bay barely make the playoffs, and they get to the divisional round where Green Bay faces off against Atlanta, Rodgers, and a kid they picked up. Another big trade that they would pull off with the Browns to land some kid. Have you ever heard of this guy, Julio Jones? Ever heard of him?
No, it doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah. Well, Atlanta soundly defeats Favre as Favre passes the torch to Rodgers. in a non-ugly way, as Atlanta would go on to win the Super Bowl versus Matt Ryan and the Kansas City Chiefs. I just pulled it all together in a cute little bundle right there at the end. But how do you like that one? I put a lot of work and a lot of creative thought into that one.
I like that. Corey's was definitely a little more, he really had to think and put some creativity into it, whereas mine was more of a, what would have happened this season had Carr stayed healthy. So both interesting perspectives, but I think you guys will enjoy, a little bit of the older ones where we really have to make up some scenarios on what would have happened rather than, what happened this season.
Yeah, we get to play a little bit of fantasy what ifs. It's a great little
we
thing.
get to be behind the creative team in the NFL.
Yeah, this is the WWNFL. But yeah, we hope you guys love that. We have a lot of other suggestions that we have already written down, and we will have, of course, a lot more as seasons progress, and we'll just see how we think the alternative timelines would work out. But next week we will be back with yet another countdown. It's our Super Bowl special. But for now, I think we have one soapbox, maybe two. No, one. So one soapbox, and we're going to get to the fourth down.
Well, folks, let us know what you think of the new segment, The Butterfly Effect, on Twitter at Fourth Down Podcast, or on Facebook at Fourth Down Countdown Podcast, or, of course, here on YouTube. But I'm going to throw it back to the guys to close it down with their rants, and we'll see you guys next week.
All right, folks, it is the fourth down. We've got just a couple more things left for you. We both got a soapbox this week. But before that, let us know on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, any of them, what you felt about our Butterfly Effect segment. If you have any scenarios that you want us to tackle, we would love to hear from you guys and give us some suggestions. We'll probably bring it back very soon. We know that we had a lot of fun doing it. But for now, we're going to let Coach Ryan step up on his soapbox and let his mind free.
All right, folks, mine's going to concern the Green Bay Packers and their situation at running back. Unfortunately, the year started kind of terribly for the Packers with Eddie Lacy and James Starks getting hurt, so they were forced to convert Ty Montgomery to a running back who I will give props to. I mean, he had I don't think very many people were expecting him to have as successful of a season as he did. But with that said, Green Bay, get your head out of your ass and figure out your running back situation. Personally, Eddie Lacy, I think he's kind of injury prone. I think you need to get rid of him and draft another running back, somebody who you can depend on as a franchise runner and not have to convert one of your good talents at wide receiver into a running back. So really, I kind of had to think of a soapbox, and that's really one that's gotten under my skin. Is Green Bay drafted Lacy years ago, and really he hasn't been healthy enough to prove what he can or can't do. So Green Bay, James Starks has been there for a while. Really hasn't been more than a complimentary back. Get rid of Starks and Lacy and find who your future running back is going to be for the next, 8 to 10 years, please.
All right.
And yours, Corey?
I'm going to go off on the Nick Saban of professional football, Bill Belichick. I know a lot of people outside of New England just hate his guts. He's a cheater. He's a liar. He's just a terrible person. I don't see how this guy can get away with so much. I mean, a lot of this stuff is thrown on to Tom Brady and the franchise, but we all know it's, Bill Belichick is, everyone calls him a genius and stuff like that, but they also called Eric Mangini the man genius, and look how well that looked because he came out of Bill Belichick's system. He has a lot of success, and the way they garnered that success is very questionable. I would really hope that, like over this last week, Pittsburgh's hotel, their alarm was pulled. I'm not saying Belichick did it, but I'm saying that, his fans have got to the fact that, or to the point where cheating's okay. Trying to get the edge on the other team is an okay thing. To the fact that Pittsburgh in their locker room had to chain the door shut to make sure no one else broke in or did anything to them, deflated their balls or something like that. But it's just a cheating culture. It's a horrible culture. I mean, it's they are the Yankees. I hate to say that. I used to be a Yankee fan, but it's like, let someone else. They need to have their downfall very soon. Even Rome fell, and it's time for them to fall as well. Two things that really pissed me off over this week that kind of gave me a little bit of this soapbox to start off with is after winning the championship title game, of course, all the pictures came out of Belichick being handed the AFC title, the actual title, the trophy, and he looked at it like it was, a fifth grade participation award. Like, what the fuck is this thing? Get rid of it. I want a real thing. It's like it wasn't up to his standards. It's like, oh, I've got a billion of these at home. I don't give a shit. But the other thing was that after the game, Belichick, being the asshole he is, they asked him how he felt about facing Atlanta, and of course he was, oh, I didn't know they won. Of course he knew. Of course he had scouts coming out going, hey, you got to face these guys next at the Super Bowl. No, I'm just going to, be an asshole and not even give praise to a team that is better than you, has a better fan base than you, that is the underdog, and I hope to God they pound your ass like a jail prisoner.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, there's one word to describe Bill Belichick, and that's tool. He is...
tool for unclogging toilets.
He's a piece of shit, and I'm not saying this because you're a Falcons fan, but I've loved how the Falcons are playing.
You're on that pie chart, people who hate New England, right?
Well, I'm
kidding.
I'm kind of in between. I hate New England, but I've really come to love what the Falcons are doing this year. Uh-huh. I've said it's their year, and people have laughed the whole time. They'll never make it past the then wild card round early.
Who said that? Who said that the Falcons would never get there with Matt Ryan?
Oh, my dad?
Oh.
Dad, are you listening? No. No.
I had to bring that up.
But anyway, it's I think it's the Falcons' year, and I hope they put so bad of a hurting on the New England Patriots that Tom Brady goes in a hole and cries for 5 months, because that's what would be best for the entire league.
Him and Donald Trump can jerk each other off.
They've, as many of you have probably heard, Brady made the cover of ESPN or something, mm-hmm. And it's being called Brady's Revenge. Well, there's one thing to that. It's not really revenge if you cheated in the first place. I mean, what's there? You did something wrong. You had to serve your punishment, but now you're going to come back for revenge because it's something that should have been done. You getting a punishment, you being suspended for 4 games. It really should have been a hell of a lot more than that. But with the Patriots being the golden boy of the NFL, slaps on the wrist.
So no wonder Roger Goodell went to all the NFC games and didn't want to go to New England, where they made fun of him because he has it out for him. If I was GM of the commissioner of football, I would hate New England too. They're horrible for ratings because everyone in the whole goddamn country except Boston love them. Mm-hmm. But it's tiring. Let someone else win. Like when we talked about last week about the AFC quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, it being only about 3 guys, except for one time Joe Flacco snuck in there. Let other people win. I mean, I would have fucking prayed to the football gods that if Derek Carr was still healthy, that he would have whooped their ass so we could watch something different. Mm-hmm. I would have loved to see Oakland and Atlanta going to the Super Bowl. That would be beautiful. That would have been. I think I would come in my pants just before the game. But besides that, I've heard a lot of people, they are wanting to watch the Super Bowl just for the commercials. And for you people, fuck off. Like you're shitting on what we love. It's like it's commercials. The one thing that no one likes, except when it's new ones. It's like unveiling a new set of diapers. It's like, who gives a shit? I mean, I know it's a rich heritage of putting new commercials and paying so much for them, but there's a game going on. I know a lot of years I didn't give a shit because it was Tom Brady versus Eli Manning, and who gave a shit about that for the third time, But it's just, I see what Roger Goodell, I'm not saying he's colluding to make sure New England never makes it again, but I know he's sitting in outside of his bed with his hands pressed together going, dear God, don't let the Patriots win again. It's so horrible for our franchise. I mean, it's like when, the Lakers and the Celtics won every single NBA title, or when the Yankees went on a five World Series run. It gets tiring after a while. Even if I was a fan of those games, I'd be like, we've got our title, guy. Let's let someone else win, I'm kind of getting a little far off track, but that it's soapbox, and that's what this is
it's
for.
It's what the Patriots do to you.
Yeah, they're a sting in my ass, and oh god.
Well, nonetheless, it's the Falcons' year. Bring it home, boys. Make us proud. Matt Ryan, you win MVP, or I'm gonna go to NFL corporate offices and
dump on Roger Goodell's desk,
trash the place or something, because Matt Ryan is deservedly in the Atlanta Falcons the team of the year.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Tom Brady's facts. He wasn't there for four games, so it's kind of hard to get a complete picture. What about those 4 games? They could have picked him off every game, but no, they don't have a complete picture. So let's just give it to him because we suck his cock every week. But I digress. But with that, we have come to the end of our podcast this week. Next week is our big Super Bowl special. We've got some great things ahead for you guys. If you want to, watch the Pro Bowl. If you want to take a nap, watch the Pro Bowl. We know as wrestling fans it's a big time for us. It's time for the Royal Rumble, so we'll be very enamored with that. But you got anything else to say, Coach?
I think that's it. Other than, like Corey said before, just give us your guys' feedback. We'd love to hear any suggestions or comments you guys have, letting us know how we can improve. Just something we like to do for fun. So just let us know on any of our social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and that'll be it. Anything else you want to add, Corey?
No, I think it's time to sign off, folks. So watch some football, listen to some podcasts, and have a great time, guys.